yeah, that's a good idea.
Close all my other open windows though.
I'm so happy that my internet came back like just before coming on.
Oh
I was
no.
like using
How
my
long was
mobile
that
data.
for? Yeah.
It was out for like 10 minutes and I was like, not right now. I like turned my router off and then back on again. So hopefully it doesn't die again. But I have mobile data on the ready just in case.
There.
But because I'm doing the screen share, so I'm like, no, you can't die. Don't die on me. But yeah, it's nice to see y'all over there. You're both in my left corner of my screen. And is it cold in Mexico? Does it get cold in the winter actually?
So not this part of Mexico actually. Where I was before, yeah, it'll be like 50, 60 at night. So cold for like West Coast. I was on the West Coast side. So now that I'm on a completely different side, which is like the tropical part of Mexico, no, it like the coldest it's gotten here, I think, is like 70. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like LA.
Yep.
How is it over at Tabitha? How is it over there? Are you going to see some snow?
From the mountains, maybe. I'm in Vancouver at the moment, and yeah, I mean it's because it's by the Pacific compared to the rest of Canada. It kind of stabilizes the temperature, and like it doesn't get too cold. I was born though in like central Canada, like in Manitoba, and that's super cold, like minus 50 to 60 Celsius every year. But yeah, here's nice. It's like quite rainy, which is typical. But yeah, really warmer than Berlin for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. You made it. You made it to Vancouver for holidays.
So happy. I kept trying and then yeah, I kept getting canceled. But it's crazy. Like when I left, all the flights after mine apparently got canceled. Except for
Oh wow.
Yeah, my mom was like watching the flights and she told me as I got off, she's like, all the other flights were canceled. I was like,
oh wow.
Thankfully I made it.
Yeah, I have a friend who's flying out of Berlin today to try and go to London, and he messaged saying that like his plane was broken or something. He was like, "Yep, my flight was just delayed by 7 hours." But
oh my
I
gosh.
think he's just gonna stay at the airport and wait it out, see how it goes.
That makes sense. Oh man.
Tabitha, when are you moving? You're moving to New York, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm not sure yet. I might need jaw surgery. So if I do, then I need to do that in Germany because there's no way that I'm going to attempt that in the US, I think.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But we'll see. Like hopefully there's an alternative or like if I need it, I need it, But
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we've got some attendees in here, which is cool. Shout out to our 3 new attendees we have so far. We've got a 1 minute to 4. So I guess like if we aim to wrap up roughly around 5:15, and then we can go through like overview of what we've done so far, and then like leave some space for questions, any Q&A opportunities. If you all feel cool with that, and aim for a 5:30 hard cutoff.
Yeah, sure. Maybe we'll give it like another, I don't know, 1 or 2 minutes before we start. Let a few more people trickle in.
Yeah, cool.
Are the attendees mostly in Berlin? If anyone wants to share in the chat section, it'd be cool to know where everyone's based.
Oh yeah. I do like the Zoom with this chat feature.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Roz.
Oh, we got someone from UK tuning in. Cool.
Yes, but your mic is muted. We can as like the panelists, we're the only ones who can talk, but I think we when we go into the Q&A session, we'll be able to enable your mics if people have questions or would like to share. Cool. Well, should we just get started?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So welcome everybody to Dice Rising. The program started today and it sounds like it's already been amazing. I look forward to tuning into things throughout the week. Our workshop is creative collaboration and online events. And we are sort of interested in what that's meant this year and what that will mean in the future. I know many of us have, I assume at this point, everybody has been on a Zoom call or attended a virtual event. And I think we all have a lot of things to say about what is good and what is bad about that. And I think we're actually kind of aiming to focus on the good because I think we all know what's bad about it and we don't need more like negative energy this year, I don't think. So I guess I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Caitlin. I run and founded COQUO with the amazing Rania and Melina, who are also here with us. And I do a lot of bits and music stuff. And yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Rania, and as part of COQUO, and also go by artist name Portrait XO as a multidisciplinary artist based in Berlin. Started off with music and then got really into visual stuff, but music is my main practice. And yeah, I met Tabitha and Danielle in different parts of the world and process since last year. And it's been really cool to see how we've managed to get through this year. And I'm really grateful that we get to do this again. And I hope that we bring some value and give a little bit of a community vibe, because it's so hard to do that, especially in virtual spaces. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I don't know if Melina's frozen. I think Melina might be frozen.
Yeah. Tabitha or Danielle, do you want to jump in to introduce yourselves while we connect?
Sure, you go first, Danielle.
Okay, I'm Danielle. I am the co-founder and chief community officer for All Black Creatives. And I'm so happy to be here because Rania and I have been friends for a really long time. It feels like a really long time. And I love COQUO. I had the chance to work with COQUO earlier this year, which was a lot of fun. So happy to be back and be able to chat just kind of about how the year went and what's going on. We have like a very cool digital community with All Black Creatives. So I love just being able to talk about like cool digital, how that's going and just kind of how we even are existing in 2020. So happy to be here.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm Tabitha. I'm originally from Canada and I've been living in Berlin for the last 4 years, back in Vancouver at the moment. But yeah, I initially had the chance to work with COQUO last year on a project for Jägermeister called Night Embassy. And that was really lovely. We, I think, really came together and made a difference in community stuff and like putting on different music events and educational events. I joined it as part of DigiGal, which is an inclusive kind of femme, trans, non-binary group of creatives working in 3D and extended creative spaces. And yeah, really, really happy to be here, really happy to talk about some of the digital events that are being put on, kind of how it's shifted from last year to this year. And I don't know, just hope for the future, you know? So yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, so Melina is back online, but is having issues with their camera. Melina, if you can hear us, maybe give us an audio of you and share some words about yourself if you can.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know why I can't turn the video back on. I guess this is one of the weaknesses of online events is shoddy Wi-Fi. Oh, I think I can get my video on now. Hey. So yeah, my name is Melina. I'm originally from California. I've been based in Berlin for a couple years. My background is mostly in kind of communications, PR, marketing, and within the music industry. But my main passion prior to pandemic was event production, particularly community and educational events. And yeah, as the others have mentioned, we collaborated first together with Night Embassy, and that was a really amazing experience collaborating with a lot of local groups that work in multidisciplinary arts and also activism. And yeah, I'm really excited to chat with everyone and also hear all the participants' ideas and kind of feedback about how we can improve this virtual space, since it's kind of unclear when or if things will go back to normal.
For sure. I'm going to just jump back in and give a better description of what COQUO is, because I realized we did kind of sort of miss that out. So I'm just going to kind of read our boilerplate, but I think it says it best. COQUO is a word of action, co-create status quo. We are a collective of multidisciplinary creatives collaborating internationally. Our mission is to address status quos that have negative impacts on society through the intersection of art, music, science, and technology. As COQUO, we encourage co-creation by facilitating discussions, workshops, and performances. In the face of the first COVID-19 lockdown, we assembled a core team of Berlin-based creatives to present Transform, an online series of virtual events exploring art, identity, and transformation through a multidisciplinary lens. These events took the form of online performances, workshops, and discussions, exploring methods of creative collaboration and conversation in this unprecedented time. So that was at the end of July. And I will throw things back over to Melina. They can speak a bit more about the specifics of the program.
Yeah, so our original intentions with putting on this event series were kind of reactionary to the pandemic situation, because firstly, we could see that Jägermeister as a brand had some budget to put behind supporting artists. So firstly, we wanted to reach out to them and see if they were willing to support a multidisciplinary online program, and also as a way to tap on our friends who are creative and most of whom had their exhibitions or gigs canceled due to the COVID situation. And we also found it to be a really awesome opportunity to collaborate internationally, such as with Danielle from All Black Creatives. And we wanted to co-curate the program. So we didn't determine what the program would be. We kind of reached out to our main co-curators and then saw what they were interested in producing with the budget we had available. So first we had our friend and collaborator, Sibeli Cavalli Bastos, do a performance lecture deprogramming gender, and they're a visual and multidisciplinary artists themselves. And we streamed all of the events on Twitch. And then we had Sani Ust, who is also doing an album listening, I believe tomorrow, if anyone is planning to tune in. She's an artist from Brazil, and she restreamed a performance that she had performed in Berlin prior to the pandemic, where it was a collaboration between her and other musicians and Gabriel Masson, who also gave a graphic design kind of create your own avatar workshop. And then Sani also did a Q&A afterwards. And we also had Sibeli and Sani do an Instagram live together where they answered questions and kind of interviewed each other about their experiences as artists, and also the status of the pandemic and how it affected their practices. And then, yeah, finally we had All Black Creatives giving a panel discussion where Danielle moderated, and we had one of our friends and collaborators, Mo Maureen, who organizes Songversations Berlin, which is like an event series that is an intimate kind of chat with artists and then performance and soulful after party. And then we had Lydia Marie Hicks, who is like an environmentalist and scientist, and TJ Hughes, who's the video game designer. And Danielle was interviewing them about how they see the future of their fields from their perspectives. So yeah, lots of really interesting conversations, and it was a new experience for us to be hosting these kind of conversations online. So yeah, I'm interested to hear more about also Tabitha and Danielle's experiences with their other projects.
Cool. Yeah, the Transform program was really fun, and it was very useful, I found, and helpful, especially because that was like early on in the pandemic and everything was just like feeling so chaotic, and we were still scrambling. I mean, that happened in July, right? And pandemic happened around March, April, when things started to lock down and stuff. So that was really great. And we came up with the word transform because after having many discussions about what we saw 2020 as was like an opportunity to just take a step back, observe everything, and figure out new ways to transform in this period, because we're kind of forced to go a little bit more inwards, and all the external things that we used to have access to are no longer around us. So the main objectives I thought we tackled quite well was like the social activation aspect. We really wanted to focus on diversity and showcase multidisciplinary arts, make it educational, and help artists in crisis, and have a community building aspect of it. At the same time, being very mindful of what's happening in the world, and with like the violence and racism. And Danielle and I had a lot of conversations about that, which is a really big topic. I mean, with or without pandemic, racism is something that's been very unfortunately prevalent, and especially in the US, and still continues to do so. So I think despite it being a really difficult time, we've had some really amazing discussions, and just the fact that like we have this opportunity here, like Danielle and Tabitha being on opposite ends of the world. And we have attendees in this room also who are not all in Berlin. So, there are some really amazing positive aspects to this happening right now. So I would like to open up the floor to Danielle and Tabitha to share a little bit more insights. Before we do that, I'm just going to share my screen with everyone here. I'm going to, throughout this session, I'll be working on this whiteboard here. It's just it's a blank space, and I will also add a link here in case any of the attendees here would like to join, and you can just grab, it's quite fun and really easy. You can grab a sticky note and write anything here. Just type some things that you would like us to talk about, or if you have new ideas, suggestions, and questions. And this is something we can just like talk throughout this session in a free space here as well. I'm going to just be taking in our conversations here and fill this out as we go along. So I will hand back to Melina to start discussions.
Sure. So really quickly, we also wanted to touch briefly on in the Transform program, what we found to be our own strengths and weaknesses. And Rania, did you want to maybe talk briefly about the strengths that you saw?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the strengths, I will start with the ability with technology, because I think one of the interesting things that I heard a lot of people talking about was like being in this situation compared to say like Spanish flu, because everyone was comparing this to Spanish flu. We didn't have technology back then like this to be able to stay in touch with people and have at least some feeling of togetherness, as difficult as it feels sometimes, and feeling oversaturated with staring at your screen and, you know, looking at someone who you would rather be hugging, or being in close vicinity. That was, I think we brought a really nice, intimate series of things that were useful. So like the educational aspect of Gabriel giving a free 3D avatar workshop, which is still on our Twitch channel. We haven't taken it down. So if anyone here is interested, you can still visit our Twitch COQUO channel and check out that session. It was really great. And the conversations that happened and the showcase, I think like we really tackled that objective of wanting to create still a community intimate vibe, and bring content that's valuable. The hardest one was like we got asked to do this with such short timelines. It was really hard to promote. In the middle of summer, yes, there was a pandemic, but people were trying to maximize being outdoors as much as possible. And so I think going into it, knowing all of these kind of challenges, we knew that the post-event content would be much more valuable than looking at it from like, okay, we have to maximize real-time traction and whatever. And so yeah, I think we did really well on focusing what our like key objectives were with like creating valuable content that people can access even after the event. And yeah, we have everything still on our Twitch channel, which I will put in our chat here.
It's interesting. We were talking about this earlier, and I just immediately said, sometimes it's easier to talk about, I find it easier to talk about your weaknesses than your strengths. So we said that I wouldn't talk about strengths because Rania just did such an excellent job at it. But I think we kind of identified that our biggest weakness was the short timeline, and that is just kind of the nature of grassroots events. If you are working on like a big conference, sure, you have a year, 2 years, 3 years to plan. But so often with smaller grassroots stuff, you have a client saying, we want to do this tomorrow. And then that makes things hard to promote. And it's just a struggle. And it's even more of a struggle when you are only working in the online space and not working in a physical event space. I think to add to that, I guess sort of our ability to like harness the technology was definitely a strength, but also I think when our program fell, it was the middle of July. Here in Berlin, it was the middle of the summer. People were kind of starting to feel Zoom fatigue, kind of just starting to feel like pandemic fatigue. I feel like in the first few months, it was kind of all a bit scary and fun to see your friends on live streams. And then, you know, a few months in, we were all just a bit sick of it and wondering when it was going to end. So I guess not to dwell on the negative aspects too much, but it's interesting I'm not sure that anybody has really solved that problem yet. And I'm interested to see, you know, sort of with a vaccine on the horizon, but I'm sure online events will not go away, how people are going to start to combat that. And yeah, I guess before we jump into our discussion with Danielle and Tabitha, I think we wanted to talk a little bit more about the collaborative tools that we used, because I think that was a huge thing that we were just researching, like what are the things we can do to make things more interactive, and you know, what even are the tools that we use to like make a live stream, because I think a lot of people, especially grassroots organizers, don't know. Maybe we kind of think of that as like an obvious thing, but we used a streaming software called OBS, which is amazing. It's like, I believe it's open source, so you can do a lot with it and make it quite flexible. Maybe Rania, you could speak a little bit more to, I know you were able to combine our Twitch and Zoom feeds.
Yeah, I was using OBS, and I was able to use like Tabitha's designs on top as an overlay, and it just took a little bit of playing around. Doing like visual heavy stuff, streaming on OBS can get a little glitchy, and so it was matter of like finding that right balance of what type of visuals you want to have during like a live broadcast. And so for us, it made more sense to have like still image. So using like some of Tabitha's great visuals as a backdrop. And then like end credits having something more like animation stuff. But having like the animation with the live broadcast was a bit challenging. And that's the biggest pain point right now, I think, is for real-time live streaming is a connection. Like if your internet connection sucks, then it's just really difficult to not have a glitchy feed. And then on top of that, then it's like the viewers who's viewing you, their connection might not be so great either. So there's like these pain points in live streaming. Luckily for us, because Transform program was on like the live element was not so heavy in audiovisual data. It was quite light and feasible. But even that, we still had a little bit of glitches. And that's just the nature of online related live things. You're gonna risk that, and you just gotta roll with it.
So next, I'd really like to have Tabitha and Danielle introduce themselves and talk a little bit about the digital projects they've worked on, particularly since the pandemic occurred, since this is kind of most relevant to now, and like the legacy of that is what we're all kind of still dealing with. Tabitha, do you want to speak first?
Yeah, happy to. So yeah, quite a few different projects. I mean, with Transform, with you folks, but then also, I mean, I'm a multidisciplinary designer and I do a lot of work online anyhow. So like working in UX, working in like 3D design, working in like VR and XR, AR sort of things. A lot of this takes place on my computer anyways. Something that was interesting, I think, in particular was the shift. Just after the pandemic started, I was meant to start teaching actually at a university. And then taking that and shifting it online, I think, was one of the biggest disruptions with projects that I was working on. But then also even just seeing how it affected timelines of different projects. Like I was working on a project for Nike, and we were supposed to have like a photo shoot, and then it was a VR, like an AR filter, so it was online anyways, but we were supposed to have a lot of touch points in person. We were supposed to have like a lot of content that we were producing and like having like a scavenger hunt and making it much more interactive. And then that being a project that was meant to take like 1 or 2 months ended up being one that was like many months more. And I think even just learning how to be a bit more flexible with timelines and shifting and also communicating that with clients as well, because you plan certain things out and then maybe for very understandable reasons things are shifted around, and they're being shifted around. If you're a freelancer, you're working on many projects at once, and it's kind of playing a bit of a juggling game, which can be stressful sometimes. But I think we've all been really like lenient with each other, or rather like understanding as well. But yeah, so the Nike project, also I was working on a project with Dead Hype and Adidas. So Dead Hype is like a really great, they do radio, but they're also like working in like sneaker drops, and they're like really a company to watch for fashion and streetwear and stuff like that. But they had hired me to do a video, and this was actually a really interesting project because it was, the way the event was run was in such a way that I thought was quite innovative for Corona. They made a drive-in. So they hired me to make like a short film for them, a short animated film. And then they actually made like a drive-in event because people could only be in their cars and because people couldn't engage and interact in ways that they normally would, especially for a Berlin event. And I think it was more cute. I think it was way more memorable. I think that it was way more engaging and interesting in that way to see how people take constraints and see how it pushes them to do more, and it pushes them to be innovative, and it pushes them to, yeah, be more creative. But that's a short overview of some of them. But yeah, really curious about some of what Danielle's been working on.
I thought it was so funny how you were just talking about how timelines get so like messed up whenever, you know, we're working on these kinds of projects, because so one of the big projects that I worked on over this year started in June, and I was working with Verizon Media and Riot. So we're working on this project that's like, okay, we're ideating. We're like, okay, what are we doing? Danielle, we want you to like do the creative direction on this and be the art curator and all of this. And it was supposed to come to life in August, and it just came to life in October. And so like that was something that got stretched out so far, because it's, you know, it's digital and people were everywhere. And but I think though that the existence of that project wouldn't have happened how it happened had we not had to do everything online. So basically what we did, the project was called Art is Revolution. And so also it was very much just a reflection of artists creating a reflection of the times, you know, of what we were all going through as a world, as a society. So it was really incredible to like digitally curate art, which I haven't done. I'm usually like physically walking around and looking at pieces to like create an art show. So it was also really different to try to find all of these pieces from 20 different artists that could fit together for the show. And then one of the really cool things that Riot did was turn it all into like this augmented reality VR experience with their tech, which is web AR. So we kind of got to create this really cool gallery that, you know, you could just experience in your house or outside if you could be going outside at the time. But it was definitely a challenge to work with 20 different artists all over the world to create this show. And then, yeah, everyone's on different timelines. Everybody's like, oh, okay, like I missed the deadline because I was on this time zone. And it was just really interesting learning how to work together. I think the first project that we did with COQUO with Transform, the time zone thing was probably like my biggest struggle. I was like, okay, I'm in Mexico, but then I'm in this part of Mexico, and then you're in Berlin. And so like, there was just so much, there's a learning curve. But I really feel like I've become more adaptable as a creative because of the constraints that the pandemic really put on us. And I've also become both grateful and exhausted of like Google Hangouts and stuff like that. Like, it was great to be able to like actually see people's faces when you're talking to them and kind of see like how they're doing and gauge like how the conversation's going and what the temperature is. But it's also, I don't know, it's also not exactly accurate, you know, because, you know, it's people got to put their best face on to come to a Zoom thing. So, no, it's all been really interesting. But I appreciate the projects that I've been able to work on this year with All Black Creatives. And we've grown. My digital life skills have grown. So I'm overall like pretty grateful for those experiences.
But yeah, I mean,
oh, sorry. I just had a question. Where can people see the Verizon project? Is it still online?
Yeah, it's still live. So let me drop a little link really quick.
Yeah, I would love to see it. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And I don't know why I can't, like my mouse just disappeared. So I'm navigating my screen, but I can't actually see my mouse. So I'll drop it in the chat in just a minute.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
But yeah, Huffington Post did, they covered it. It was a 30-day campaign. So it went on for about a month. So I'll definitely drop it in the chat. It's a lot of fun. Oh, I forgot to mention, one of the cool things is that we got to be part of ComplexCon. So ComplexCon is usually like physical, but they did virtual installation called Complex Land. And so it's basically you like create this little, your digital avatar, and you put clothes on it and you walk around this entire world where you're basically, you can either like purchase clothes and they're like, hey, there's a sneaker drop happening in this part of like the game, and you have to like navigate there. And if you're late, then you're like in the queue. It was really a cute experience. There's like digital food trucks that you walk up to and you can actually order food and it comes to your house.
That just happened, right? Because I think I signed up for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. So we had one of the virtual billboards was for Art is Revolution, and then you could just click it and it would just drop you right into the experience of it. So that was also really fun.
Yeah.
Super cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is kind of you kind of touched on this, but it like this year seems to have made the world like a much smaller place. Like we're all sort of existing in smaller spaces, but we're also able to communicate with people all over the world. And I guess maybe that's one of the opportunities that's come to you, but I'd be interested to speak to all of you. Like, do you think you've had opportunities that you wouldn't have had otherwise if not for the pandemic? Like, I guess from my experience, I am like studying at uni, or I was going back to study at uni, and I thought I was going to have to leave Berlin and go back to Toronto. And I've been able to stay because all of my studies moved online. And now I'm actually going to stay in Berlin. Like I thought I was leaving and now I'm not, which is like super cool, actually. And I think we talk a lot about all of the things that got taken from us in the pandemic, but I'd love to hear more about like the opportunities that have been given, like that have arisen.
Yeah. Tabitha, go for it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that I think I felt this, maybe to like preface, I felt it a little bit before the pandemic as well. I mean, say what you will about Instagram, and I have, you know, a lot of things to say about it, both good and bad. But I think that even like Instagram and the ability to connect with people all around the world has been incredible, you know, and I think that this just enabled a deeper ability to do that, or rather it cut off the other streams of communication, and so we were funneling our energy into channels like that even more. And I definitely think that, yeah, like a lot of, I mean, if we look at fashion now, like the fashion industry has been completely disrupted, and by way of that, there have been more jobs coming up for people who are working in digital spaces, which I think if you were working in that space before, it was like a bit lucky for you, but then also like people who never had explored like making fashion in 3D and stuff like that, they now are kind of challenged in what can be seen as, you know, perhaps like a very positive way to learn some new skills or stuff like that. And there are a lot of like open source softwares out there as well that make this sort of stuff accessible. Like Blender, for example, I mean, as like a 3D open source free program and software, I think it's really incredible and quite amazing. But yeah, definitely new opportunities, and also just new connections on a personal level as well. Like I think that everyone has been so like opportunities to challenge ourselves to communicate in different ways, because now we don't have the kind of privilege of body language. We don't have the privilege of just being in similar spaces as people. And so we have to become better at saying our needs, also with mental health and stuff like that. Like for the something that I have as a habit, or not a habit, but just like kind of a way of operating, is I don't always say when I need help, which can be difficult sometimes, like especially not to clients. It's not something I would talk about with them, but there have been a few moments this year where I've had to say to clients, especially when timelines were being shifted quite a bit, and I had to very openly talk about mental health stuff, and they would also talk about it with me. And I think yeah, as an opportunity, kind of extending beyond just work opportunities, as like self-growth opportunities, I think those have been quite abundant. Yeah, but curious what you think as well, Danielle.
Sorry, there's a lot of construction happening behind me, so it's kind of loud for a second, but no, I think you're spot on, and I really feel like, sorry, I'm gonna mute it for just a second. It's so loud.
I'll just quickly comment and add to what Tabitha mentioned about meaningful conversations in unexpected places, like work has definitely been a big thing. I had to cancel a show in Cologne that was still happening even amidst the pandemic, and it was just due to like timelines shifting because of the pandemic, of like some people in the production team having to get tested because one person caught corona and tested positive, and then everyone had to take a step back. And all these like in one hand there's like the thing that is certain for now, at least in Germany, is knowing that we're in lockdown. And in one hand, nothing is going to change because everything's shut down. And the other hand, there's like high uncertainty of and like unexpected shifts of like, this can't happen right now because this has to get postponed. We're being impacted by pandemic this way. Our whole production pipeline has to go on pause until let's revisit this in a couple of weeks. So definitely like when we used to be able to plan like a year ahead or something, now it's like, okay, maybe a month ahead if we're lucky. 2 weeks ahead, 1 to 2 weeks ahead, feasible, you know. And along with the open source software, I really liked Spark AR. That was also really fun that I'd like to dive back into for anyone here interested in like AR filter design. Super fun. And I noticed like a lot of free online courses also at the very start of pandemic. That was really cool. There's a free like machine learning workshop for anyone who's interested in music and AI. And I will, as soon as I remember all the links, I will post it in the chat here also.
Danielle, is your construction still going?
I'm a lot better now. Yeah, but no, just like I actually want to say there's one thing, Tabitha, you were mentioning just about like our mental health during this entire time and just like what that's been like, and I think that there's been, at least for me, this like weirdness of, since I can't kind of go out and fill my days with like, I'm feeling productive because I'm physically going out and doing things. Sometimes I found myself saying yes to too much, or, like, oh, I want to feel like I'm being productive. And so like I have all of these different things set up and then being completely drained because, there's not that natural rhythm, or that natural rhythm of like, okay, this is what my day looks like. I've started, work, and now I've ended it, and I've interacted with real humans or whatever it is. But yeah, that just really made me reflect on that too, because it was a different kind of learning how to take care of our mental health, like a completely different, I don't know, it's just really bizarre. But I'm hoping that becomes like one of our tools for the future, like tool belt. If this kind of thing happens again, it's like, okay, now I know how to kind of go into it, and I know what signs to look for, and I know like how to say no a little bit easier, because even though it's just a Zoom call, it's still going to be, is it going to be draining on my energy, or, what that is kind of like. So anyway, we waited a long time for the construction for me to just say that, but that's kind of what I wanted to say.
It goes great with our next question. Oh, Tabitha, were you going to add something?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think, so like something that my therapist has been really great with has been kind of enforcing this principle of like changing narratives. And she hasn't said this, but it would go very much in line, I think, with something she would say, of just like shifting from thinking of things as like challenges to like thinking of them as opportunities, maybe, or like as problems and thinking of them as opportunities. And like, yeah, this has been an opportunity for us to grow. And of course, many people have faced many different challenges, and some, far greater than I, in terms of depending where you live, if like your healthcare was taken away, depending on if you live in the US or not, etc. But yeah, if possible, like understanding the narrative that's in your head and understanding how to look at it in a different way can, for me at least, has been a really positive way of approaching it.
Yeah, I think also in terms of like opportunities outside of work, just having this big slowdown, and then the unfortunate side of people losing work and losing their jobs has meant that there's more opportunity for participation, such as protesting. And that's obviously been a huge factor in the States with the Black Lives Matter movement. And then also when the pandemic started, and our intentions with doing the Transform program, like redistribution of money to people who need it most. There was also in Berlin a organization created called Berlin Collective Action, which I was a part of, and it was basically a group of people who are like kind of queer nightlife organizers in Berlin coming together to find ways of redistributing donations to people who were left without any income, especially gig workers and people with like kind of unclear legal statuses. And I think that this time, and also just being mindful of immunocompromised people and like those with less, I don't know, who are more impacted by the pandemic. I think we've all become more mindful about our different levels of access and health. And but going back to our next question, you kind of touched on this, Danielle, about how moving forward, how the events of this year have affected our work. And we wanted to know how you think going forward, like what are you looking forward to returning to, but also what do you feel that you will kind of learn and keep using in the future from this time?
Yeah, well, I think something that I guess like just tools that I've learned that won't be moving forward are, one that I was just mentioning about making sure to check in on my mental health, even if it's just, I'm not physically doing a lot, but, like making sure I'm checking in with myself as I'm creating my calendars, being intentional about how I'm interacting and making sure that I'm including self-care. So that's definitely a big one. I guess like another thing that's been fun is finding other digital tools to use. Like I just got introduced to something, it's like Mural, but it's called Miro. It's very similar. It's like an open source situation and all of that. But so just like learning all of those different kinds of tools has been a lot of fun. I actually am working with an organization called Breakout right now. They just gave All Black Creatives a grant. And so it's for, the topic was the future of social interaction. And so just like being able to have these kinds of really cool group discussions, like we had one yesterday, where I just presented, hey, as All Black Creatives, we're having to pivot because most of what we did was physical. We did a lot of, physical art shows. We were doing a lot of, events where our freelancers and our creatives would come in and be taught by Instagram or be taught at Google or whatever these different things were. And so as, our physical opportunities dwindled, it was really cool to just be able to like figure out, okay, well, what are people needing right now? Like since we don't have this physical community, how are we still able to connect with each other in a way that feels meaningful? And so for us, that was like, well, pivoting to creating like this type of digital membership for our creatives and our freelancers. And one of the cool things that we were able to do through that was to get 21 different freelancers hired and paid through this Verizon Media project through AIR, so it's been both like challenging and rewarding with that pivot, but it's just really nice to see how different companies are hiring globally. So Square's like, hey, you can work from home and still fill these positions. And so like that opened up an opportunity for us to help our creatives get placed in different positions, just wherever they are all over the world. So I'd say it definitely opened up my my mind a little bit to what can be possible. And then, yeah, just trying to like learn on the fly and pivot. So that's been good.
Yeah, so this was like stuff returning in the past, right? I think it's maybe hard for me to think about going back, or maybe, yeah, it's I don't want to have expectations maybe and then have them unmet in that way, because I think that can be a really good way to set oneself up for disappointment. I think this has been really a challenge because I am very much like a planned person and stuff like that. So I think this has been a good like opportunity for me to like learn from that a little bit and be a little bit more flexible with certain things and even play things a little bit more by ear. As I said, kind of prior to us opening up the conversation to the participants, like I'm in Canada at the moment, and here for some months, like staying with family and like attending to some things here. But yeah, I mean, I had so many flights canceled this year, and I think because I kind of had this expectation of going and then it couldn't happen and then it was going and couldn't happen. I mean, yeah, this isn't quite so related to work, but I think it can be applied in that way as well. I think something I would really love would be when we can hug again and we can like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I live alone in Berlin, and it's in like this small apartment, and I did have some hugs in the summer from like people who are also kind of quarantining and being safe and stuff like that. And I think the first time I had a hug, I like cried, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think that's the number one thing I'm looking forward to is like being able to hug people again and just being able to be in the presence of other people, because we've proven to ourselves that work can be translated online. And I think that, I mean, there are so many talks as well from people who've been really advocating for rights for people who physically aren't able-bodied or able to like go into work. And for years, they've been asking for people to like companies to make work more accessible online. And then now this has happened and it's proven that that's able to be done. You know, which has been unfortunate that these people who've been advocating for it for so long, you know, were maybe never given that opportunity, but now it's been put into the forefront of like, hey, this is something that can be done, and you need to be able to continue now to make it accessible for people who need this in the future, even when we can go back to work. But yeah, just I'm looking forward to being in the presence of real humans again.
Oh, that's so relatable. I remember at one point I was like, I'm counting time based upon the last time that I hugged a friend. And it was like, that was actually how I was measuring time. And I was like, this is so sad for me right now. And everyone all around the world is experiencing something so similar. It was like, I don't know, like we were all isolated, but having this really strange collective experience. And it was just like, now we're back again and we're doing it again. And it's just like, it's very, I don't know, it's surreal. There's going to be a lot of continually, like, I think a lot of conversations and art created and just like so much different stuff over the next, decade that comes out of this. And it's just.
Totally. We're living history.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with everything you both said. I think it's just crazy because right before the pandemic, I was already starting to, you do your like New Year's resolution, and one of my 2020 things was like, okay, spend less time online.
Mm.
Do less digital things because life is already so digital. And then it was like, life was like, no, you're either gonna have to be more digital or either you're just gonna like lose touch with everything.
Yeah.
But actually, what I found that it started making me do is it's forced me to be even more mindful of how much time I spend online and like what exactly am I doing within specific moments of time because keeping track of time this year has been like mashed potato. It's just like everything, there's all of my memories this year. I started realizing like I thought it happened in 2019, but they actually happened in 2020 because it's just been so strange. And I think that's just kind of a natural thing that happens from like trauma. But yes to hugs. And which leads to my next question to you both about on the topic of community and looking forward to hugs. Um, how has your sense of community and belonging changed due to the pandemic?
Maybe you want to start, Danielle.
No, you go. I'm gonna think about that for a second.
I mean, I think community, like, I feel like I was already quite blessed in Berlin to have the community be so strong there and to have people really supporting each other in ways that I haven't necessarily found, at least for myself, in other cities. But I think that this challenged everyone to go even further. I mean, like, we were really supporting each other, at least in certain groups of friends, of just like financially sometimes, like mentally, emotionally, calling to check in often, and I think all of us were kind of going through like very, what is it, like night of the real or something, like just a time of extended trauma at the end of the day. And we were all going through it together, and kind of as you said, Danielle, like we were going through it separately but simultaneously all at the same time. And I mean, I think it very much challenged everyone to engage with empathy and compassion in new ways and grow as well in those departments and grow together oftentimes. And yeah, I'm just so thankful. And yeah, my community here and online and internationally, my family, etc. I think we're all stronger for it and more connected for it as well. And I think that trauma always does create a bond in some ways, shared trauma, stuff like that. And we've all had this shared trauma now together, and we at least have that access point should we decide to take it up, of being able to empathize with each other on a different level. And I think that if there's any silver lining, to me, that's like the greatest one, is just the ability to show humans that we all just need to empathize with each other more and try to understand each other more. Yeah.
Agreed. I think empathy is definitely something that we'll need to carry with us into the next year. And I think that the way that we communicate and interact with each other will be like a reflection of whether or not we truly have learned empathy through this time, or if we've just kind of like, I don't know, because I think that it's true. And I think that we're fortunate to have communities of each other where we can experience that closeness and that empathy. And then I think there are, unfortunately, some of us who've gone through this experience and instead of expanding in these ways have kind of curled inward. And so I think that so both of those two things exist. And when like this world continues to open up, we'll have those of us who, you know, crumbled and shrank during this time, and those of us who have expanded. And I think that we're going to really need each other, but I do think it's going to be very difficult because it's like the separation is kind of grown between these two realities. I don't know. It's really interesting.
You're super right, I think.
Sometimes I wonder if I'm existing between those two realities. I feel like every day's a new day, you know? But yeah, I feel grateful for all of the communities that have been built in the last few months. And I mean, I have not loved group chats ever until now. I like love my group chats. And I think it's really interesting. I was talking to a friend about how he similarly has really like enjoyed group chats or like sort of more communal messaging. And him and I both noticed that we both have way less of a tendency to post online about stuff. We'd rather put it in the group chat because it just feels like we have this like closer bond with people. Like, why am I going to put this on my Instagram? Like, I'd rather just like send it to my friends in a way that you might not just text a link to somebody every day, you know? So I've been like really enjoying that. I see we have a question from Roz in the chat. So I'm gonna read this one out. In terms of organizing this DICE event, how long did it take to put together from the moment the idea was conceived to the production to making the event live? We have a history with COQUO for finding out about deadlines about 24 hours before we have to submit to them. So I think it was about, let me look at a calendar. I think we submitted a proposed, DICE put out an open call, and I think we caught on to the open call around, I want to say it was the 23rd of November. So that was what, about 3 weeks ago. And then we had some initial discussions about it. And I think we were all, the three of us were sort of feeling a desire to reflect specifically on this year of events and specifically the events that we did in the summer. I think it's sometimes easy to get caught up in doing things and making them happen and then not really reflecting and taking that in into your like next practices and stuff. So I guess we submitted the pitch sometime that week, and then I think we confirmed our participation the following week, so like the first week of December. And then we wanted to involve people who were part of the Transform program, and wonderfully, Tabitha and Danielle were both available to speak with us. So that was amazing. And then, yeah, we just sort of kind of started formalizing our ideas about reflection and thinking about the tools that we used in a greater sense. And then, I mean, we were still kind of chatting and formalizing stuff even as early as this morning, to be honest. But again, it's just kind of the way events go. Like, I feel like you kind of have an idea and you want to roll with it. And that's, I think, another amazing thing about this time is you can just like, I think people are more keen to just like pick up the phone and be like, let's work through this now. We don't have to like set up a meeting. We can just go for it.
Which can also be like assaulting sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
I'm like calling every second.
Yeah, it's I guess we were talking about it a bit earlier, like boundaries can be really hard if you're not like leaving to go to an office and coming home every day. Your office becomes your work, and again, this like just mushiness of time. You're like, what day is it? What time is it? I'm also finding, I'm not sure how it is over there on that side of the world, but in Berlin, you know, it's 5 o'clock. It's been dark out for like 2 hours. Was it even light out today? I'm not sure.
So another question we wanted to ask, which I think you already briefly touched on, Tabitha, is dealing with online safety and dealing with having to combat trolling, inappropriate behavior, hate speech, spamming. Do either of you have experience with this in terms of the digital events that you've produced so far, Tabitha and Danielle?
Maybe Danielle, if you want to start off with this one.
I think, you know, thankfully, no. Thankfully, the answer is no for this. And I don't know if that's thankfully for the digital events that we've had.
Or I kind of had some thoughts that were mildly tangential. I mean, definitely, yeah, like I'll flag or report inappropriate things or just like try to assert things in that way. But I mean, recently I posted, I'm a bit wary of some of the new policies that Instagram has put in, specifically in terms of like, I mean, like sex negativity or just like policing certain language things that maybe are affecting certain communities. Like for example, with like I think a lot of us know like Danny Coyle, and her name on Instagram is intersexy, and she was trying to get like, because she's an intersex advocate, and she was trying to get like filters approved with this, just like the word intersex in it, you know, and Instagram was taking that down and flagging it and censoring it, when it's like literally how she identifies and what she's advocating for, you know? And recently I posted a meme that had the word like sex in it, and it was flagged. And then my account was like, you know, given a warning. And I think that there are two levels to it, you know? There's like the level where we're kind of policing each other, but I kind of recently, from many experiences, I think we need to go for the source. Like, I think we need to also, of course, like hit the things as they happen and like cut off the thorns and stuff like that. But we also need to like go to the root and help create change and policy change within Instagram and all of these platforms, because like if we're just cutting off the stems, then that's like triple or, you know, n times the amount of work for us, when we should be trying to make policy change within these companies, because that's what's actually going to affect things, and it's also going to stop the communities that we're a part of from being negatively impacted. I mean, I've also had a number of friends, specifically like my friend Eiley and their account on Instagram, like they're a photographer and they had like a huge following. And I think they had posted like a nipple or something, and their entire account was just like completely deleted. You know, no warning, all their contacts lost, all of their work lost, and their career entirely affected, you know? And I think when we talk about censorship, you know, we're talking about it from a specific angle of like, you know, trying to root out like sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic comments and stuff like that. But Instagram and Facebook, these platforms are censoring things in a completely different way. And I think we also really have to look at that angle of it, because we're approaching the word censorship and inappropriate things as completely different reference points. Yeah, this is a bit of a tangent, but just something I've been thinking about a lot. So.
Interesting, for sure. It's definitely like we do have to start thinking about like the roots of where this stuff lies. I'm going to jump in with one last question before we open things up and sort of start prompting, and hopefully I know Rania is having some connection issues, but hopefully she gets back within the next few minutes. We've sort of been talking about this internally, but how do you think we can involve people better so that we're not just like sat in front of a screen passively? And like, how do we bring value to feeling connected in digital space? Like, how do we not just sort of feel like we're these little boxes on a Zoom chat? How do we engage people I don't, there's not a right or wrong answer. I think it's just, I'm interested to know in ways that like you both have done it, because you both obviously like work in digital space, maybe outside of like events strictly, but like I think you're both very good at using the digital space to engage people. And what have you seen like has worked and hasn't worked?
I think that's hard. Because so whenever we did the Artist Revolution campaign, we focused on just kind of like engaging people through encouraging them to use the app, put the art in their space, and share what their experiences are surrounding the art. And we had some people really run with it, you know, and they're like, this is what it looks like in my bedroom, and here it is outside my house, and you know, like it's in my space. And so that was also a very new experience for many people as well, engaging with virtual reality in that way. But I also think that it just feels completely different to go to, let's say, well, I'll give this example. Very early on into the pandemic, I went to a virtual dinner party. And the plan for that virtual dinner party was for it to be very like interactive. There was I think there was a fashion show and like a prize for best dressed. There was someone who like they sent out this huge recipe card, so everyone was supposed to create the same food and just kind of like eat it together. There was like the drink recipe, and then there was someone who was live making the dessert that everyone could try, I think, or something like that. And so I would say that from like it was a very bizarre experience, but at the same time it was kind of fun because there were little things that they used to kind of put everyone in like a similar space, like so everyone kind of like had tried the same dish, you know, had the same drink, and everyone was dressed ridiculously, which was also kind of fun because you don't really see that on like a, you know, a virtual experience like that. So it was like there's this guy who was wearing a Speedo and a fur coat. And then there was this, like, it was just very bizarre, but like really fun. And then there was a fashion show halfway through where like this woman played music and dressed in clothes that she'd like made or whatever. So I think really getting people actually up out of their physical seats, if you have to do something like a Zoom or you know, whatever like that, can be like, it might take a little bit to get people involved in it, but I think kind of, I don't know, just like doing something that's out of the box is really kind of, it can be really fun. And the results can also be really fun. It's like, yeah, we're all being ridiculous together. Or we're all just like sitting here watching each other, which is also kind of, can sometimes be intimidating. Like I know for me, if I'm like, okay, my emotional reserve is at 0, I'm going to attend an event and my camera's going to be off. You know, if I'm like, I really can't deal today, then I won't. But sometimes when the pressure is like, it's like, oh, well, you're not going to just be sitting there. You get to like move around or whatever. So I don't know. That's just one of my experiences. I thought was pretty cool.
That's pretty interesting, actually, about, I mean, what you just said kind of made me think about like if you're at an event, generally you can only look at like one or a couple people at a time, but sometimes on the Zoom events, you're looking at your screen and there are like 30 people, like 30, you can see 30 people at once, like all looking at you. And so maybe it feels like you're on the stage somehow, yeah, which I haven't thought about in that context before. Yeah, I guess, yeah, engaging with people, asking questions, authenticity as well, and just there's just so much content online, you know, and there's just so much kind of regurgitated and rehashed content, and there's, you know, the media outlets are just like creating content to make content. So being mindful of what we're consuming, I guess, but also just like giving attention. Like my friend Marie quoted someone, I forget who, recently, and said like the most valuable thing you can give someone is your attention. And I think that's more true than ever right now, you know, because we're on our computers and we're getting like notifications from like all these apps and all these like platforms that we're a part of. And I think to give someone your attention is engaging. And I think that it's also much harder to do now and also kind of more rare somehow because we are online and we're meeting online and we can't always have that like one-on-one interaction anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, I see someone's in the chat here, Marianne. Like you're saying here, like, yeah, I went to one talk where they explained that Zoom can be so much because every time you go on, you're giving a performance to everybody on screen. And like that's so true. To be honest, I never really thought about that. I never really thought about the ways that like the second your camera is on, you're like really turned on, and that can be good because I think sometimes it forces you to like pay attention a little bit more. Like I think that sometimes when I have my camera off, I'm like, I'm gonna go make a tea, or like I'm gonna go do this thing, and I'm on mute anyway, so no one really knows. But I think sometimes it's it can be exhausting to have
do you know one thing that I became extra grateful for, which I didn't really think much of at the time, was I got given one of those little slider things for my webcam, so I can do that.
Oh,
And,
cool.
and I don't know if you all remember at the very beginning of pandemic when everyone was getting on Zoom and there were like business meetings happening, and there was this video that was shared all over of this one guy who had his camera on and he was like butt naked in the background eating a bowl of cereal, and everyone was just like shouting at him and he was just completely oblivious. But yeah, and I just wanted to add further thought to that comment about like feeling like you're performative in a Zoom call. I'll say I did start to really appreciate online events that are not broadcasted all over the place. Because that was a thing also that I know that was like happening quite a lot. And I know we also explored the space with the Transform program of like streaming on like Facebook and YouTube and from Zoom and all these places all at the same time. And then also like some of these online streams like staying online afterwards also is like another thing. And so I started appreciating some more of these intimate things. Like this Zoom event right here feels nice and intimate. I know that when this finishes, this is not going to be saved, and also it adds a little bit of value of that kind of like real-time interaction that I so much miss. And because when we're having online, I mean in real life events, yes, there's like some content that's featured, but for the most part, we're there to live in the moment and we're there to live in the real-time discussions. And there is something that is strange that happens when you know that you're being captured.
It's interesting with this particular, because I mean this Zoom call is being broadcast out to like YouTube and Facebook, but it's kind of nice that it feels like we kind of have this little hub here, and then people are like able to engage with it a little bit more passively scrolling through Facebook or YouTube. Like I kind of like that difference in the two, depending on how you want to engage with it. But
I guess just like seeing yourself is like disarming sometimes within
I forgot that Dice is broadcasting on Facebook as well as YouTube. Hi.
Yeah, baby. Rainia, do you want to take over the whiteboard? We're going to kind of open it up to people, everybody as attendees. If you all want to, Rainia's going to provide some prompts and we can discuss them here, but we'd love to hear from everyone who's attending. So I believe you should be able to raise your hand. And if you do that, we can like allow you to talk, or if you don't want to talk, you are welcome to just get in the chat, but I will throw over to Rainia.
Yeah, so I'll screen share again, and let me put it to all panelists, and who can start sharing when someone else is, oh, I'll just leave it at that, okay. And see if you can see this. It is so interesting, isn't it, what happens in your mind? Like now I know we are on Facebook and YouTube. It's like, hello, everybody. So this is just like, I'll tidy this all up at the end, but I was just taking some notes from our discussions, and I just thought it might be nice to have something in writing. And I am happy to email this around and you're free to print it or use this for hopefully some useful inspiration and reminders. And I'm happy to also send this link around to maybe keep it open for a while before we download it and send it around as like a PDF file or something. But can everyone see the mural? No? Huh. Okay, so we've got Marianne can see, Jessica can't see. Well, here, I'm going to put our email address here also. If people in this chat here are interested in participating and like adding some post-it notes and questions or whatever you'd like onto our mural before we close it out, feel free to email us, because I think we have like 15 minutes left, so not a huge amount of time, and maybe this is something that we can keep open for like the rest of this evening, and then tomorrow morning we can share it. So how to access that is, let's see if this works. Here is the invitation link. Please let me know if you're able to get in with that. But yeah, I've just added some sections in here, and we can all reflect on it and add more to it, because I know sometimes when we're having intense discussions and sharing ideas and thoughts, sometimes it's nice to sit on it for a bit and then come back to it and write everything down. And I just find it really useful to, I think it's easy to like forget a lot of this stuff sometimes. And I'm also happy to add more to, especially like the free stuff in courses section, if I can think of any additional things. And if anyone from this chat has any questions, I've been posting some of the questions from the chat room here. But if there's new ones, feel free to ask, and we'll answer them as much as we can. And yeah, some positive takeaways from 2020.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you about positive takeaways and like opportunities and things that have come to you sort of amidst this pandemic. And obviously we've talked about some like resources and events that we enjoyed or didn't enjoy, but would also love to hear from you. I think I'm super interested in like all the events like dinner parties and stuff like that have like really made great use of the space. So if people want to write in the chat, they can, or I mean, now you all have the mural link, so maybe we can just have you jump in there.
Yeah, does anyone in this chat have any questions for any of us? I'm definitely gonna have some more thoughts about other resources and events that I found useful for community building during this time. DICE is a great one.
Yeah.
I'm actually so happy that DICE is still happening, and I remember their first event, and like getting to know everyone, all the people behind this program. We're just like, yeah, we don't know how long this is gonna last, and it's so great that these type of events are able to stay alive. I don't know how, it has been 3 years, 4 years. I don't know if I don't know, my sense of time again is just kind of all over the place. But yeah, these digital things that are happening are strange, and this mural thing actually was part of another panel discussion that I participated in, and so that's where this idea came from. And I really liked this idea of just like having a communal whiteboard space where you can just like post-it note things, and there's something kind of nostalgic about using digital post-it notes, even though they're not real.
Marianne's saying that she can't see the link. I just sent it again in the chat. Are you able to click into that? I'm gotta say, I've never really used this mural thing, and it is so fun. I'm like loving seeing, and I like that you can like see where everyone else is at too.
Yeah.
It's so user friendly too. Like it takes like
Yes.
to learn, which is cool.
Yeah, this was my biggest thing because that's another thing that I found this year is like there's a birth of so many new digital tools and platforms, and I found myself feeling really overwhelmed with like people were like, oh, everyone's moving to Discord, go there and try this out, and it's like some people are using Slack for certain things or Airtable for certain things, and there's so many things, and some platforms I noticed like there's a longer learning curve, like you have to really sit with it for like an hour or something to figure out how to use things. And that's something I really liked about mural. It's like it's very tactile, we can just like grab stuff and it doesn't take long before you're quickly just in it.
Someone just reached out to me. Hi, Alice. I'm gonna comment on the YouTube link and on the Facebook stream direct on the dice. I'm gonna put it on my just so people can see the link, because people can't see the chat who are watching from Facebook. Mural link for cool. Hopefully people can see that and view it.
My question to Tabitha and Danielle, as we have like about less than 10 minutes left, is what would be your key suggestions for, based on what you've experienced this year and how you've personally tackled some of your challenges? What would your suggestions be for others who are working in similar spaces as you and are maybe wanting to get started in like, I feel like because that's another interesting time now is like these online courses and people have this opportunity to like either pick up new hobbies or figure out new things that they want to do. And it's also that time of year where I think we're all kind of like reflecting on everything that we've done in 2020. And it's like the traditional, what's your New Year's resolution? Do you have any like, I don't know, top 3 suggestions for anyone who's just getting started in your space, and what you could give some words of wisdom?
I think in terms of like making 3D art or like design and stuff like that, don't worry about it being perfect. I think like there was a time when I was working in marketing more, and then I was trying to come back to making more art and making more design. And something that helped me a lot was making something every day. And it was like just a commitment to myself to make something every day. And it didn't matter if it was good or if it was bad or if I liked it or not, but just that it was something and that it was like as complete as it could be. And of course, like some things take many days to do, but even if I could just do one thing, like if I could make one section of a painting or one section of whatever I was doing, yeah, to just stay consistent with it. And I think that there's like a study I've heard referenced a lot of times, and I'm going to paraphrase it and get it slightly wrong. But it was about like this art class that was like split into 2, and there was one half of the class that was told to make like one thing for the entire semester that was like really great, and then there was the other half of the class that was like challenged to make something like every day or every week. And what they found was like, for the most part, the people who were making something every day or every week created things at the end that were like better, but also that they liked more, because they had just allowed themselves the space and the freedom to explore without overthinking it. And I think the thing with a lot of these softwares, especially like 3D, if you've never used it before, they can be really intimidating at first. But just do what you can, you don't have to be an expert in like a couple months, even if you can just like make like a shape, and have that in there. That's already a big accomplishment, and it's something that you've learned that's new, and that's really cool. Yeah. So that's
I really love to hear that. I feel like one of my like New Year's resolutions for 2021 is to like kind of hone more like creative skills a bit more. And I feel like it can be really tough when you're approaching it and you're thinking like, why am I forcing myself to do this every day? It should be something that I like love to do, but that actually like eventually if you do it enough, I'm sure like some days will be better than others, but it's that the hard work does pay off.
Totally. It's like exercising,
Yeah.
First you hate it and then you like enjoy it after.
I started this thing like recently inspired by a friend because I was realizing how much time I was spending inside. I mean, this isn't really totally related to online events, but I was realizing how much time I was like sitting at a desk spending inside and how much it was bumming me out. And she made herself a calendar and she gives herself a sticker every time she goes outside or does exercise. And now I have one. It's great. I love it. I'm like, ooh, I only got one sticker today. Like I'm going to do a yoga class after this just to like
give yourself your own gold stars. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I love that. Yeah, I think again it goes back to that tactical thing, like having something physical. It's like in this very digital life that we're living that's gone even more digital, just having those tiny little physical things really, really help so much. So we've got just 3 more minutes left. Danielle, would you like to share any closing thoughts for creatives in hard times? Any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I guess. So I know earlier we kind of talked about like the times when we're like closing in versus like expanding during all of this. And so I would say like during the times when you may feel personally like you are closing in and shrinking, because self-care doesn't always help us to come out of that, but sometimes community care does. And so like I would say if you feel yourself closing in and shrinking in, like I think sometimes just finding ways that we can give back can help us to expand. So sometimes that can be really helpful. And then also, like I try and do this for myself if I feel like I'm like getting into a weird funk. I try to do something that will like surprise myself or that I just like don't normally do. And I think that that's also like a form of self-care. Like sometimes we're used to just like, well, I'll just be like more gentle with myself, or I'll just kind of like, give myself a pass. And then, but I think sometimes, just doing it can just be like something silly or funny. Like I was not going to go to this dinner party and dress up in a ridiculous outfit and, do whatever. But then I did. And it just really felt like, I kind of shocked myself out of my funk a little bit. So anyway, I think sometimes that can be really good. And then just for people who want to get into building digital community, I think a really good tip is to know who it is that you want to be serving, and then find out what it is that they need. And I think that kind of works for any community that you're trying to build or create something for. But yeah.
Yeah. As we close out, I wanted to give everybody the opportunity to shout out like their Instagram handles or like best ways to, follow up. I was thinking about, I guess for everybody who's registered for the Zoom, we can send out this mural link and the final PDF. But I guess we can also put it on, that was very weird. My phone just tried to connect to my computer via Bluetooth in a way I've never seen it try to do before. Hello. We'll also post, we'll put a link to the PDF of the mural in our COQUO bio. And on Instagram, we are COQUO, that's COQUO.co.
Awesome. I love how interactive everyone is in this mural. There's like, I love the positive takeaways from 2020. Like there's things that are just constantly being added to it, and it's very warming. And I would just add to what Danielle just mentioned about self-care. This is something that I have found I've had to redefine so many times this year, because we just had to find new ways to feel good. And I think doing nothing is sometimes actually even more challenging than doing something. And this is like the biggest challenge of this year, is like we were all forced to face ourselves in absolute solitude in much longer periods of time. And so meditating, journaling, and doing yoga at least has been helping with keeping things at like some kind of an even pain and peace. But yeah, I would like to thank everyone for sharing this space. Tabitha and Danielle, as always, thank you so much for gracing us with your wisdom and your words of positivity and how you got through this year. And I've been like absolutely in love with just watching you do your thing, and how you're able to just power through with a lot of love and grace. So thank you for spending this time with us. And to Caitlin and Melina also, for you've been there to help me through this year a lot. And I think this is what community is all about. It's like this year has just been so challenging in so many ways. And yeah.
And thanks also to DICE for organizing and continually putting on really inclusive and amazing discussions and performances and supporting the Berlin community. Yeah, we're super appreciative of having this time, and it's been really lovely to chat with all of you.
Yeah, thank you also to like all the attendees. I see you, Roz and Marianne, in the chat. It's been so nice to just like hang out. What a nice way to spend an hour and a half in the day.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, all of you folks, for including us, and also for attending, and yeah, DICE for putting it on.
All right, I guess we'll say ciao for now.
Yes, thank you all so much. This has been so lovely.
Ciao.
Ciao. Till next time.
Yeah.
Bye.